Speedway Report is produced and broadcast by the Zeus Radio Network for Racers Reunion Radio. Well, the French Grand Prix gave example to every stereotype of F1 critics. Matty D scores a career-best finish, and I'll say goodbye to old DW. All this and more. Welcome to Speedway Report, Monday, June the 24th, 2019. From the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina, I'm Patrick Reynolds, and thank you for joining the fastest half hour in racing. With this being June 24th, you probably know what's coming out of me. If you know me well, crossed flags are in the air. We are halfway to Christmas Eve. 6 months from tonight, Santa comes down the chimney. I hope none of you turn the channel because of that, but it's in my nature to point these things out because they're important. And with June 24th and only 6 months left until Christmas Eve, let's step into the Speedway Report Victory Lane Lap and talk about the first full weekend of official summer racing. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series was in Sonoma, California yesterday afternoon. Martin Truex Jr. scored his third win in the Wine Country Road Course area. The trucks raced at Gateway Raceway at St. Louis, Missouri. Ross Chastain avenged a disqualification from the race previously to score one on the mile-and-a-quarter oval in St. Louis. NASCAR's K&N Pro Series West was the undercard in Sonoma. Noah Gragson took the win there, and there's not without a little bit of controversy that we're going to get into shortly. Indy cars were on the picturesque, beautiful bucket list racetrack for me in Road America, Wisconsin. Alexander Rossi laid the smackdown on the field, winds up in victory lane. And in Formula One, Lewis Hamilton won the French Grand Prix. Yeah, we'll touch on that too tonight. NHRA, our straight line friends, were in Norwalk, Ohio. And all four classes, or all four of the national touring classes, were in action. In Top Fuel, Blake Alexander won on the final round. Matt Hagan was your winner in Funny Car. Tanner Gray took down the Pro Stock Wally, and Eddie Krawick scored the victory in Pro Stock Motorcycle. On the dirt tracks, the World of Outlaw late models ran their sanctioned Firecracker 100 in Lernersville, Pennsylvania. Originally scheduled for a three-day affair, Mother Nature took night number one on Thursday. Friday night, local hero Mike Norris took home $6,000 for the A-Main win. Saturday night's Big 100 won by Tim McCready. He cashes a check for a cool $30,000. World of Outlaw sprints were in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin on Saturday night. Brad Sweet was your A-Main winner. They had intended to race last night in Dubuque, Iowa. They were rained out and canceled. That event will not be made up. The ARCA cars were also in action at Gateway out in St. Louis. Ty Gibbs, grandson of Joe Gibbs, used the front bumper and a little bulldozer maneuver to find his way to victory lane in the ARCA Series at Gateway. USAC Sprints wanted to race in Putnamville, Indiana. The rain had other ideas. They were rained out. Grandview, Pennsylvania got their show in. Jeff Strunk was your winner in the small block modifieds. Tommy Miller took home the Sportsman win, and the Super Sportsman guest show, as you would call it, was won by Steve Wilbur. The Cars Tour was up the road from us in Thornsburg, Virginia, where Josh Berry was the winner of the late model stock car 125 lapper. And in Bowman Gray Stadium in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Brandon Ward was the winner of the NASCAR modified 100 lap feature. Well, where do we want to begin tonight? I know where I'm going to begin, where I want to begin with the great Darrell Waltrip, old DW, Fox Sports broadcaster. I know him from his days back in driving. Let's talk about Darrell Waltrip for a while here, as he definitely deserves some airtime. Now, I remember Darrell Waltrip, young punk driving for Dyegard was when I first made the connection to DW back in the late 70s. He was driving that Gatorade number 88, and I found it shocking that he would actually tempt fate with a green race car, but he did that with several years. It was actually white, but I had a lot of green lettering on it. That was a sponsor, Gatorade. So Gatorade didn't come in a whole lot of flavors back then, so they just went with the green. That's what they drank. That's what they presided over, that's what they promoted. And I looked at that car. I said, wow, look at this guy. Because everybody knew back in the day, Peanuts, the number 13, and color green on a race car were just bad luck. You did not do it. So naturally, as a young kid still in the single digits of my age, I latched on to Darrell Waltrip. I said, wow, he's a pretty interesting guy. Now, I didn't care for him too much at first. My father could not stand him. He's a loudmouth, punk, blah, blah, blah. You figure you take it. Anything negative that could be said about Darrell Waltrip, my father pretty much said it. Of course, he did that with a lot of people. That's a story for another day. But he didn't like Darrell Waltrip one bit. And he was a loudmouth. He spoke his opinion. He was a Southerner, grew up in Kentucky and lived in Tennessee. However, he was the young guy on the circuit when I was a little kid following the sport for the first time. The old established veterans, Petty, David Pearson, the Allison brothers, Cale Yarborough, you know the group. Those were the top dogs at the time. And this young kid came in there full of swagger, roughing up the feathers of the established crew. People are always going to take their side of the battlefield with that one. We saw it years later with a guy named Dale Earnhardt and a young kid named Jeff Gordon. Well, the same situation played out, as the sport has always been cyclical. As Darrell Waltrip comes in here, brash, bragging, cocky, running his mouth in TV interviews. And he backed it up on the racetrack, won a lot of races. Took him a while before he finally won his first championship, but he did that driving for Junior Johnson. And when he made the move from Dygaard to Junior Johnson's car, sponsored by Mountain Dew, oh my goodness, 2 more years of green cars. Yeah, well, in 2 years, he won 24 races in those green colors with Mountain Dew. In his 3rd year with Junior Johnson, they just swapped the sponsorship from Mountain Dew to Pepsi, and he won 6 more. So he won 30 races in a 3-year span with the soft drink sponsorship. But he was brash, he was young, he ran his mouth, and he won championships and won a whole lot of races. And I didn't really care for him at this point because, well, I kind of reflected my father's point of view. I don't know if I formed my own opinion on Darrell, but I listened to my dad, and the smart money was to just agree with Dad. Yet there was something about old Darrell. I did like the aspect of him. I liked how he was asked a question and spoke his mind. Now let's correct an urban legend here for a moment. Darrell Waltrip never challenged any fans to a fist fight. No. Let me tell you the story, and we'll blow the urban legend myth here. He challenged fans to meet him in the parking lot at Kmart. Yes, he did that, but it wasn't for a fight. Let's tell the story. Darrell was at a racetrack. I don't recall which one. It might have been the one here in Charlotte. But during the week leading up to the race, he had an autograph session at a local store. He was there in the parking lot, meeting fans, taking pictures, signing autographs. He gets to the track that weekend. He's largely booed because, well, Darrell got booed a lot in those days. That was his thing. The fans reacted in a lot of boos. And he said, boy, I wish they could have met me in the Kmart parking lot. Somebody in a news medium, they do some irresponsible journalism, picked up that quote that he wanted the fans to meet him in the parking lot and took it as Darrell challenging fans to a fist fight. No, he never did that. He wanted fans to meet him in the parking lot because he had an autograph session. It would have given the fans a chance to chat with him, to say hello, to get to know him a little bit and see what a nice guy he was. He never challenged any fans to a fist fight. Never did. He asked them to meet him in the parking lot because he had signed autographs and taken pictures there earlier that week, and he wished fans had given themselves a chance to meet him, get to know him, before they just booed him and flipped him off and gave him hell on race day. That's what that was all about. Remember the telephone game when we were in grade school, when we got in a circle and we said something to the person on our right, and then they whispered it to the person next to them, and it made it all the way around the circle. And by the time it got to the last person, it was nothing like the original message to the person to their right. That is what happened with this story. Irresponsible journalism and an eagerness to run with a bad news story because we didn't like Darrell Waltrip. DW never challenged any fans to a fist fight. Take that story to the bank. Hope that clears up any confusion and blows that myth out of the water. That is what actually happened. Getting back to Darrell's driving career, when he moved on from Junior Johnson, he went to Hendrick Motorsports. It's a huge move. It was some sort of a super team we thought it was going to be with the Tide Ride. He won a lot of races, did not win a title with Hendrick. He eventually bought that team, and it became his own team. But then it was a shame as the end days of his career went out like a whimper and not a bang on the racetrack. Darrell is a race-winning, championship-winning driver, deserving of every bit of his Hall of Fame induction. Every bit that he gave to NASCAR, he's due all our respect. In the later days of his career, it's a shame that he held on too long, however, because he kept having to use the past champions provisional just to make the field, and he often stayed there on race day in 43rd and in the back. In the last days of his career, it was really sad because I remembered how competitive and dominant he used to be, and I didn't wish that on anybody. You don't want anybody to go out like that, just slowly fade away to their uncompetitive nature. That's what he did. However, in those late days, in the mid-90s and late 90s, Darrell spent a lot of Saturdays in the broadcast booth, honing his skills for television broadcasting. He did a lot of TNN work. He did the Busch race, Busch North races, modified races, the support division races. He was up in the booth with different networks honing his skills. He was fantastic. I so looked forward to the day when he would go into the broadcast booth full time. It was exciting. I thought Darrell was going to rock. The original concept with Fox was Mike Joy's Pat Summerall would be paired with Darrell Waltrip's John Madden. That was going to be the combination for when NASCAR moved to Fox. Darrell retired as a driver in 2000, picked up a microphone full-time in 2001 as Fox took over and NASCAR took over the broadcast contract for the entire sport. Darrell moves into the broadcast booth, and honestly, I have been disappointed. I was never a fan of his in the broadcast booth. I thought he was too much of a jokester. I thought he made himself too much of a story. This does not take away my respect for Darrell Waltrip on his body of work as a career. He's due every bit of respect on the track and off the track for all he has done for this sport in NASCAR. But I loved him in the late 90s when I thought he had a lot of potential, and I saw him on Saturdays before he raced on Sundays. But when he got to the booth on Sundays, I just never took to him. He wasn't the same guy as he was in the 90s. I found him being very analytical and bringing a lot of nuts and bolts and technical aspects to a broadcast in the 90s, as well as his good old boy personality. I thought his humor was there. I thought the humor took over too much on Sundays when he was in the broadcast booth. And I was never a fan of Boogity. Hated it. Always did. Could not stand it. I would purposely miss that part of the race or turn the volume down because I couldn't stand it. Now, Jenna Fryer of the Associated Press wrote an article recently and was also critical of Darrell Waltrip. She was taken to task all over the internet as well as her colleagues within the sport for bashing Darrell Waltrip. I'm not here to bash Darrell Waltrip. There's aspects of his career I liked. There's aspects of his career I didn't like. I was a fan of Darrell. I've got a few T-shirts of his still in the attic. I think I've got a Tide number 17 tank top still in the attic, folded up just as a keepsake. I got a lot of respect for Darrell Waltrip. I like Darrell Waltrip. I'm a fan of Darrell Waltrip, but I don't love everything he did in his career. I didn't know what to think of him when he first came in. I was a big fan of him as I got to know him better. I was disappointed in the sad end of his career on track, and so is he, how he raced, because I remember the wins in the championships. And then when he got to the broadcast booth, I was never a big fan. However, for all he's done for the sport and for his Hall of Fame induction, Darrell, a tip of the hat to you. Much respect. I wish you well in your retirement. I won't miss Boogity, but I'll miss Darrell Waltrip being around the racetrack all the time. Hopefully, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's going to be in a rocking chair too long, but he'll be around, and I wish him well in the years ahead. Now I'm going to jump from fendered cars Let's go to some open wheel cars. Began Sunday morning with the French Grand Prix. This race could be a great stereotype for all the critics of F1. Mercedes had the front row. Lewis Hamilton ran away with it. He had no competition. Valtteri Bottas chased him. He was like 12 seconds back or whatever. Definitely a second place guy. Hamilton just rolled away. Louis Frank told me at Indianapolis one year, you only got to watch the first 5 minutes of the Formula One race and the last 5 minutes of the NASCAR race. F1, when they dive into the first turn and go a little bit, and the field kind of settles in, that's largely your race. And it was, again, in France. However, there were some battles late in the outside of the top 10 and within the top 10, but we had to wait almost the entire race to get any action going. At one point, with about 10 laps to go, the only battle on the track was for 14th and 15th. So you're talking 4 and 5 spots out of championship points anyway. So there was something to watch. However, that is really hard to keep the excitement and adrenaline up for a race. It was just a ho-hum affair. It doesn't necessarily mean there's anything bad with Formula One, but this kind of was the stereotype of anyone that complains about the circuit gets. Mercedes and Hamilton just walked away from it. Now, within the top 10 in the late stages, we had to wait almost an hour and a half for it to happen, but we had some very good racing. Lando Norris pulled off a fantastic drive in a McLaren. He qualified in the top 10. His DRS system was disabled late in the race. He was having a hard time upshifting. Still finished 9th overall. There was a penalty to Daniel Ricciardo. Lando Norris in a McLaren qualifies and finishes in the top 10. He got driver of the race voted by the fans on Sky Sports. So good for him. Tip of the hat to Norris. He did a very entertaining and yeoman's job yesterday in France. Now, later on in the afternoon, a few hours later, as we moved from Formula One to IndyCar before we went to NASCAR, I'm going to give IndyCar the TV winner and Smart Move Award for yesterday. I've said this for years, that IndyCar should not be afraid of NASCAR. However, look at NASCAR's Cup schedule and use your head a little bit and try to take advantage of when they're not racing to expose your sport to more fans. Get the sponsors, get the drivers out in front of fans. It's a great series, good racing, good drivers. I'm a bigger fan of that than NASCAR, and I grew up on stock cars, for crying out loud. But IndyCar, noon start yesterday, noon pre-race, 12:30 start on NBC, main network. Great. NASCAR, Fox Sports 1, a 3 p.m. start. IndyCar was smart to move their green flag up where they weren't head-to-head with NASCAR, as well as they got it on the Peacock, on the main network. Smart move by the folks at IndyCar. This is how you rebuild this series. I've been saying this for years. This is good. If you can race when NASCAR Cup cars are not running, that is great. So many times they just don't pay attention, or I don't know what the problem is, but you would have the 3 o'clock race at Sonoma on for NASCAR every year, and right simultaneously with it on another channel is the road course at Sonoma or another IndyCar race. Move them a little bit. Try to expose your racing to some new fans and new eyeballs. You've got a great series, guys. Show it off. Let people see it. Don't put it up against the 800-pound gorilla that is NASCAR. Now, a lot of controversy went with the NASCAR weekend out in Sonoma, California. On the Saturday undercard, the Pro Series West, Noah Gragson was penalized for jumping the restart outside the restart, was leading the race, went early on the restart zone. Ryan Preece got busted for the same thing later on. Screams and yells over social media. How do you jump the start if you are the leader? Simple. There is still a restart zone. You cannot go before the restart zone. It's not Saturday night racing. The leader does set the pace, but you have to be in the restart zone. At least NASCAR was consistent and busted Gragson for it and busted Preece for it. However, Gragson was early enough in the race where he had enough time to battle back and win the event. And how about Matt DiBenedetto? Unreal drive. This is great. He finished 4th place for Levine Family Racing. And this, I've been waiting for him to pop all year long. He had that spectacular run in the Daytona 500 in February, led the most laps, was in the top 5 before they had that big one, those restrictor plate pileups, which took him out of it. So he had nothing to show after leading the most laps at the 500 in February. It shows the cars are good. We know Matty D can drive. The team's good. Everything's in place. They just have not been clicking and have been underperforming, I think, for their alliance with JGR. But 4th place yesterday for Matty D, outstanding. Tip of the hat. I thought DiBenedetto did a great job. I want to see more of this out of Levine. They've got it in them. They just haven't been able to find it. But that was a darn good drive yesterday by Matty D. And I did spend Saturday night at the Bowman Gray Stadium in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Can't believe we finally got a race in around here. It's been very difficult with the raindrops around Lake Norman and the Charlotte area. But we started racing at 8 o'clock, had a 4-division show, including a chain race at the end of it. And all of it was done by 10:30 after starting at 8 o'clock, which is a darn good thing, because when I left that track and walked out the gate at 10:35, the skies opened up and soaked us all. So we dodged rain finally around here to see some racing. But a well-run show, a 2.5-hour program for 4 divisions of racing plus a chain race. Cool stuff. And our Motor Week Illustrated Racer of the Week. It's a Speedway Report Racer of the Week, but I always like to pay tribute to Dave Despain and Motor Week Illustrated, because that's where this all started, was with him on Saturday afternoons when I was a teenager. And I was looking at the Racer of the Week. Some guys had great drives. Lando Norris was one of them. Lewis Hamilton, it didn't have much competition, but he ran a perfect race. Alexander Rossi laid the smackdown and Road America to the IndyCar guys. And I struggled with this. All 3 legitimate nominations. I think they were good for Racer of the Week, but I'm going to go DiBenedetto. Matty D, I think he got more out of that car than the other guys got out of their cars for the level of what he had and for the level of what he's doing. That was good to see. So Racer of the Week this week for Speedway Report. Give it to Matty D, and we'll award that to Matt DiBenedetto. Everyone, in between our broadcasts, keep up on the world of auto racing with SpeedwayReport.com. This show and all of our past shows are uploaded on the site, and we've got some racing articles to read there. Let's go through the social media rundown. I'm all over the place. On Facebook, I'm on Racers Reunion and on Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds. On Twitter, I'm at Speedway Report and at Speedway Pat. I'm at Instagram at Speedway Pat. RacersReunion.com. We've got shows in the forum. I'm also on LinkedIn, and we've got 2 YouTube channels with this stuff. We're all over the web. Find us, Speedway Report, or check me out. Speedway Pat's a common handle. Big thanks to everyone on the Facebook Live feed for joining the conversation during the show tonight. It's good to be back. Thank you for watching. Go see a race at a track near you. We just hit the official start of summer. Drag strips, ovals, road courses, everything. Go to a track this weekend and support the sport, please. That is the foundation. That's our backbone. That's the support system right there. And I want to give a big thanks to the military, past and present, for the freedoms we enjoy as Americans in our daily life, including the simple things like bench racing right here on a Monday night. Freedom is not free, and a veteran paid that bill for us. To all of the men and women who are defending freedom and watching Speedway Report, take care of yourselves and come home soon. A special salute to the teachers, school staff, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics in our own communities. They are quiet and modest heroes every single day. God bless and thank you. You have been watching Speedway Report from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. Please like our Facebook page, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, and you can follow me on Twitter at Speedway Pat. Now, on the Drag Racing List Facebook page right now is Drag List Live, so when you're done with Speedway Report in a few minutes, head on over to the Drag Racing List page, because we've got some good drag racing talk there. BP, JB, and BS are manning the controls at the Drag Racing List Facebook page. Now, I'll be back here live on Facebook in 1 week. It'll be Chicago's big quadruple header weekend, IMSA's 6 hours at the Glen, the Austrian Grand Prix, and a whole bunch of short track racing. Thanks for spending some time with us. I will see you next week.